Today we'll be discussing demonic contracts. When I think of demonic contracts, I think of Robert Johnson, the true father of R&B, rock and roll, soul, all of that. And it's ironic that because he's labeled that king, he was also one of the first known in music to make a demonic contract. Now, many would say he sold himself or his soul to the devil. But our soul is not ours to sell. Now, many of these demonic contracts are very interesting and they're very, very specific. And all throughout the ages, genies, we've discussed this before, have been known to make deals. When they're conjured, they give you a choice of 3 wishes. But all of these are forms of contracts. So when you want to know a demon, always know that a demon wants to make a deal, because they deal in illusion. They deal in contracts. And one of the worst things that could have ever happened to us was for us to forget our craft. And of course, when they brought it around Halloween and Friday the 13th, they made everything spooky. But this was a natural part of our life ever since we existed. We went through that before. And unknowingly, we need to accept that many of us are hybrids, are possible offspring of a fallen rebellion that took place. This doesn't mean that you need to accept evil, but we all need to know that we all came and were born with embedded instructions. We all have contracts. We have contracts with the source, and for those who get to rebellion and they're knowing of the craft, people also have contracts with demonic energies. Lately, our access to information has been one of the greatest things that could ever happen to us, because information is brought upon balance and alignment. And the most vulnerable people in the world are the people who are not aware of their craft, of sorcery, of what they call witchcraft, of discernment, of all these different gifts. And because many people go into things blindly, not knowing themselves, because knowing yourself is one of the most important things to know. I don't know why that's such a bad thing. Oh, that's that deep stuff. No, knowing yourself is essential. It's mandatory. If Whitney Houston would have studied herself and understand her ancestry, she would have known that any contracts that she signed with the wicked were binding spells. But knowing the craft, you would understand what a binding spell is. When you write your likeness or put your name on something and you make a promise, these spells, these things really have validity. You know, we are really spiritually wealthy. But just like many were tricked out of their land and their wealth and their land and everything else, you're also tricked out of your spirituality. Every contract is a binding spell. That means that everyone in the entertainment business, everyone that has signed some form of contract is a binding spell. This is a demonic contract, especially if the intentions of the person that you make the deal with is nefarious, if they're wicked. Our contract naturally is with the source, the master creator of all things. Our contract with the source allows us to stay within ourselves and understand the language of nature. The language of nature, an example is when you see a red cardinal, you can interpret that as a visitation. You see butterflies, when maybe a crow might appear out of nowhere, or a crow may fall out the air. You have dreams dreams and warnings. These are all different forms of the language of the universe and nature. These are things that were with us in the beginning. This is why reading and practicing the craft was considered such a violation in the days when they had us prisoners of war. Slavery, so-called slavery. One of the worst things you could do was read and have understanding and practice your craft. So throughout the years, it was embedded in us that the craft was an evil thing, that the understanding of nature and the elements was something evil you was doing, and you became a threat. And it's still like that to this day. But at the same time, all of these crafts that you've been outlawed, this is what they do in their secret societies. These are what the Shriners, and all the practitioners, the Kabbalists, the priests, the high priests, and these cabals, they're using the magic against you. But just like all magic, all sorcery, there's always repercussions. There's always karma. And karma is silent and swift. And everything goes in a complete circle. That's what true understanders of their craft realize. So everyone who participates in these rituals in Hollywood, you are paying service to demons. No matter how the entertainment makes it look, of course you're going to gain everything. This is what the jinn or the genie does at first. It grants your wishes. But remember Yeshua on the mountain with Satan. Just remember that. That's a very interesting case. I will give you all the kingdoms of the world. It was him that had that to offer. Or in the book of Job, all throughout that story, Job was tempted to curse the Most High, to curse the source. Allegorical stories, but they show the way of the contractor, the one who brings the contract. They have Faust, all of these different times, Robert Johnson making deals. And this is why they're getting so much. So it's much more to it than just talent. It's much more to it than just intelligence. These are contracts. This is sorcery that has been with us from the beginning. But if misused or misunderstood, you definitely will be under a binding spell, a contract with the demon. One of the greatest things that we could have been given from the Most High, from nature, is information. But what's also as important is your comprehension of the information. This is Ancient Nine Mystery School, and that's my discussion on contracts with demons.